right, let's get started. It's 7 o'clock. We should have, yeah, 3 students at least, because the 2 other students are still doing the competition. They get into the state, so that's why today just still trying to program the robot. So they're not going to come to this class today. Actually, you can hear the noise. They are in the next room, program the robot, and that's what they are doing. Let me share my screen now. All right, so today we are going to learn Unit 6, and that's area. So we learn the basic code blocks like condition, iteration, and last week we learned writing the class, and we needed to know how to write a class, and we did an exercise, and that's very good. So if you know how to write a class, because class is the basic of Java. So this is a dedicated question in the LPA computer science test is for that. So now we are going to learn a high level data type. Actually, it's not just a data type, it's a data structure. So let's move on to the next slide. So you will learn techniques and understand the algorithm to work with collections of related data known as data structures. So that's the objective of this unit. And then let's see the weight of this unit. So it will be 10 to 15 points. It's 4 to 6 multiple choice questions. And it's also in the free open response questions. So in those questions, they will test you the skills on area. So let's see what are tested in this unit. So it will test you how to represent in multiple related items as area objects. Okay, so that's actually the structure of the area. And they will also test you how to traversing an area by accessing the elements using iteration statements. It's looping, right? So how do you get the items one by one out from it? And how do you do that? And then we have the standard algorithm that you utilize area traversals to perform functions. And so it's also how to get the items out from the area and use that to perform functions. And we will see some examples. And first, let's get into the basics. So area is in the data structure. It's not itself, of course, you know, in Java, everything is an object. An object, we can treat it as a data, right? So different data or different data type. But for area, it's really talking about the structure of data. It's not just area. We have more objects like that or more classes like that. So that's what we needed to cover. So in unit 6 and unit 7, they are going hand, go hand in hand. So let's see this one. Data structures. So we learn the primitive data types. We then learn the string. We can think a class is also a data type. It encapsulates different data into this class. It's the highest level of data. You put a different data types in that class. You encapsulate it. And the area is not at that level. It's not as high as that one is. So string is a class. A class is a reference data type. Okay. So when we talk about a class, we see this is a reference data type. And then like the primitive type, like a integer, double, long, we see that's primitive type. So array is a data structure. That means the structure for how the data is arranged makes a difference in programming. So how the data is structured, that makes the difference in the programming. So we need to learn that. We need to learn that. So data is very important in programming. That is why we have 3 units on data structures. Unit 6 and Unit 7. So they are go hand in hand. Unit 8 is an advanced topic on Unit 6. Okay, it's an advanced topic on Unit 6. So we will look into that one as well. Today, hopefully we can finish Unit 6 and Unit 7. So of course, array as a class is also a reference data type. It's more a data structure, but as a class, it's also a data type. It is called a reference data type. All these are a subset of a bigger concept of connection. Okay, it's in a subset of connection. So array size cannot be changed after its creation. So that's very important. So remember that. Also, that's the limit of it. So that's also why you see we have other similar data types because of the limitation. So array size cannot be changed after its creation. Array size cannot be changed. Once you create it, you cannot change it. So its index is 0 based. So it's for Java, for Python, a lot of languages, and they are 0 based. That means the first item, its position is 0. And the max is 1 less than the length of the array. So we need to keep that in our mind. And you get the length using this property, okay? Use this way. And a real name and then the length. Get it that way. All right, so this is an attribute, not a method. Remember, it's not a method. Like a string, you see the length, you have the parentheses here. That's a method. Here, it is an attribute. You do not see the parentheses in it. It is a method. So if you use an index that is not available, you will get this problem. What problem you will have? There was a array index out of bounds exception. So we need to be very careful. So you need to always remember why we talk about this, because you wanted to traverse over an area and use the index. So you need to always remember the index value, the max index value is 1 less than the length of the area. So that's why. That is why we need to be aware of that. So syntax to declare an array object. I think you saw this slide in our level 2 class. If you do Java class in AOE, so this slide you should be familiar with. You say, how do you declare an array? You use a data type and then just give it a name. Okay, that's preferred one. Preferred one. Okay, and then you can also just use data type and you put a square bracket here. It works, but it is not a preferred way. So this is what we prefer when you declare and when you declare an array. And of course, this is how you initiate an array object. So you declare it and give it a size. Okay, you initiate it. You initiate it. Okay, and then you can see this. You can give it a value that way. You are not using new that data type. You are not doing that. You give the data type here and give the name, and then use process. Okay, the process to initialize the array. So the array already have those objects in it. Okay. So there are several ways to do it, and this is a very common way, and we also do it this way. Right? So how to access the element in an array using using the index. So that's the example. So you have the enhanced for loop to do that. You just give the data type, and then this is the element. It represents that item in tone in that area. So you say I, and then this area. So you just loop through it. This is an enhanced for loop in Java. We also call it for each loop. For each element in the array, you do something with that element. So that's the syntax, or that's the structure. So you cannot change I here in the loop. So what does it mean that you cannot change I here in the loop? Does anyone know it? Does anyone want to talk about that? Okay. So that means in this loop, okay, you cannot change the element itself using the for each loop. Using the for each loop, you cannot change itself. Why? Because actually you get a copy of that element. You use this for each loop, and you use if you use an for more for loop, that one you can change. I can give you an example to show you why it is not changed. Okay, so this is the way to do it. So let me give you this. Let me give you this code. I want you to try it. All right, can you go ahead and try it? So let me put it here. You see, I have an array, integer array that has all the integer value, and you see I use I in this array. And you see I increase I by 1. I increase I by 1, so I print out I. And then after this loop, okay, and then I want to print out I again. You see what you printed out. So let me just run this. You see, this is another loop, right? This is another for loop to print the stuff out from that area. And let's see what we got. You see here, it's a 368, and our array is 257. But now, if you come to this loop and you want to print the items from the array, and you see we still get 257. Though you see here, you changed it, right? But actually, you did not change the array itself, because the I actually is a copy of the element in the array. It is a copy. It's a copy. Right. So any question on this? So let me stop here, and then I wanted to check your work. Or before I check your work, do you have any question? Do you see that why it cannot be changed. I want you to have that in your mind because you will be tested in your AP computer science test. They want you to know that using this for each loop, you actually cannot change the element itself. Any question? Oh, what do I mean? Okay, a copy. Okay, so you have this element. Okay, if you have this element, let's say 5 in the array, and I use I come to represent a 5. I'm not really actually put this 5. I just get the value and I copy it and I put it into I. So now I has that value. So even you change the I, you did not change the atom in the array itself. So that's a copy. Okay, you by copy by value, it's a copy there. You're trying to get what it have, but it's not the atom itself. It's just a copy of that atom. All right. So that's a very good question. So let me check yours, see if it runs okay on your computer. Jinkan, do you mind to share yours to me, to share your screen to me?
I haven't finished. Is that mine?
Oh, can you, I cannot hear you clearly. Can you speak loud?
My microphone's bad. I haven't finished mine.
You have not finished the coding, right? Okay, so Colin, do you mind to share your screen? Okay, let me give you like 2 minutes to do it then. I'll give the class 2 minutes to do it. You copy the code to your Eclipse and run it. Right? Are you both finished? Okay, I do not get response from you guys. All right, so if you guys do not want to share, or let me just move on. I'll do it quickly, okay? All right, so let me zoom out a little bit. All right, this is the quiz. Can you guys put your answer in the chat window? What is the value of what is your answer? I got two answers. I only get two answers so far. I expected two more. What? So the right answer is D, and the why it is D can Hagen, can you explain it? Hagen, you have the right answer. Oh, okay, right. So because you know some initial value is 0, so the first time you get into the loop and do the iteration, and it's 0 plus 2, right? Zero plus one, or actually plus one. Okay, so that's one. So actually, the answer should be 5. Let's see. Let me run it. Okay, let me run it, because you increase at first. So even if it's 0, your increase becomes 1. So the first value you get is 1. Okay, and the answer is B. All right. I think Daphne, you are right. You are right. So let me run it. It should be BB, because it is run it increase first. So let me just print out Y. Let's print out. It should be 1, because I is increased. It's a C. Oh, that's 1. Yes, C. Yeah, increased 1, so that's still 1. It's not then, so it runs twice. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so the answer is C. I'm sorry. So I got it wrong. All right. So how about this one? So let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. What is counter value after left the program? This one is kind of hard, okay? And I take this from the real test. You see, you have a minus minus and a minus minus and a minus minus here. Can you put your answer here? Okay, I got 2 answers. Okay, I got 3 answers. All right, so the right answer is B. I got 4 answers. And I think this is, you just need to look at that. So once we get like a I1, I2, the first time they are the same. So you increase count by 1. So count is 1. So if you get the next one, okay. If you get the next one, so I1, okay. So the X1, I1, and X2, I2. So this one is less than, so not I2 decreases, but actually I1 does not decrease. So that's why you see it gets to, only when it get to this one, then it will still increase it once. So that's why it is 2. That's why it is 2. It's not A, okay? This does not, you see 2 and 2 here. You thought that they are equal, so you should increase it by 1. No, because of the index value change. Okay, here the index value only changed on I2. It does not change on I1, and only when it happens here, then I1 get changed. Then they have the same step at this point. Okay, so the right answer is 2. All right, so let's move on to the next topic then. So you keep 2 things in your mind. One is that an array once it is created, its index cannot be changed, or its size cannot be changed. So you need to keep that in your mind. And the second one is that using the for each loop, you cannot change the array itself. You cannot change the array itself. So now, because of the limitation, now let's do the array list. So array list is rather of array. So you will learn, you will get deep into data sets, exploring array list objects for large amounts of data, as well as the privacy concerns related to personal data storage. And this is the weight. So it's not as much as the array, but it's still not that small, because 2.5 is 7.5. Sometimes, you get 7.5, so you get 1 to 2 questions. And this is also in the free open response questions. You will be tested there. And what will be tested? It will represent a collection of related object reference data using a realist object. So when you read this item, you think, oh, this is very similar to array. It's also the related object reference, right? And also this one is very similar. You also need to know how to traversing in a realist. And then you see this one. We need to build a standard algorithm. And you said this is also, we saw in the array unit. Okay, so this has a little bit more, and these 2 more actually are very important. I really want you guys to remember when we talk about that, because we will come back in the unit 10 as well. Unit 10. So you do search to sorting using standard algorithm. And I think if you like doing computer science, you do like a computer programming Olympics. then you will give a lot of question on those. How do you do searching? How do you do sorting? Okay, so let's move on to the basic stuff. A realist is a dynamic and versatile. Okay, why it's dynamic? Because you can change its size. Its size can change. You can add, you can remove, you can insert and add them to it. So that's a realist. So you see, it's totally different from a real on this way. And you can use a realist name size to get its size. So now let me give you a quiz. Here you use a realist name size to get its size. For a real, how do you get its size? Can you guys put your answer in the chat window? How can I get an array size? I just talked about in the beginning of this class. Yeah, Hagen, you're right. So I wanted to get other students to respond to it as well. How do you get the size of an array? Yes, yes. All right, good. So you use the array length, and the length is an attribute. So you do not have a parenthesis. You see size here actually is a method. You use the parenthesis. So this is a generic modifier. You see, when we create an array list or we create an array, we put the data type name, right, in the very beginning. So we know what data type it is. Here, you just put a generic E here. Generic E. You can also use data type for sure, be very specific. But if you are not sure you want it to be generic, you just put a angle bracket, the E there, okay, to use when you create an array list. Okay, so this is how you create an array list. You put in an array list here, and this is the type of the data in the array list. As I mentioned, you do not have to specify the data type. You just put a generic E here. It should work. And the my list, a new array list like that. Okay, so that's the way for you to create an array list object. And then you can also do it here. Do it like this. This is a generic data type. Generic. So want you guys to remember that. These are the basics. You cannot use index to access the element in the array list. Remember this, okay? You cannot use the index. You have to use get. So I'm not seeing the index values. I'm seeing using the square bracket. You cannot use the index this way to get the element from the array list. And you have to use get. Okay? The size will automatically change when you add, insert, or remove an element from the array list. So you need to be very careful when you're doing a loop on the array list. And if you add an item to it or you remove an item to it, you could easily run into an index issue. If you remove it, then you still keep looping, and that way, if you use the I as the index value to loop, and that way you could easily get into an exception because the max index value you use will be bigger than the max index value the array list has. So that will be a problem. So be very careful on that. So the index shifted to right when you insert. Okay, that makes sense. Very straightforward. We will move left when you remove. Okay, so the index value will be very dynamic there. Let's move on to the next slide. You see, I have an integer list, and I can add one. Okay, So what does it mean? If I added a 0, 1, that means you put it in that position. And if you just add a 1, that means you added it to the end of the array list. Okay? Do you guys have any question here? Do you guys have any question if you have 2 items in your 2 parameter values here? This one will be the position. This one will be the item added to it in that position. This is like an insert in that position. Okay, so that's the difference. You can set. Set will return the original element at that position. It sets that position to the new object. So let me give you this URL, and I want you guys to take a look at this object. Okay, let me give you this URL. So when you do set, you set that position to a new object, but the old object actually is returned to you. It's returned to you. So you can use some variable to hold this one. And when you hold it, it's the original element. It's not the new one. Okay, can you spend like 2 minutes on this website? And I want you guys to look at the add. You see, this is what I talk about. And you see E here, this is a generic type, okay? When you deal with array, you put a E there, that means this is a generic. It can be anything, but it must be of the same type of your array list. Okay, so you have to familiarize yourself with all those important methods. You can do add, clear, and get use index, okay? And also do set, and you need to know what a set is and size, you say, return the length, the set. So you need to be familiar with those. And then let's move on, because there are 2 very important concepts. Really want you guys to understand it. So let's move on. So we need to understand the sort and the search. They use loop to do search. So you just get every one item from the array list, and you compare it to your target, see if there's a match or not. So that's easy to understand, right? So that's a search. But what is this? What does the sort do? So there's a selection sort and the insertion sort. Actually, this is a very important and a very confusing. You need to spend some time to read it, to understand it. So let me just give you this website. And I like this one very much. And let me give it to you so you can read it, what is in. So what is sorting? So you see, what is in a selection sort? Okay. What is an insertion sort? I want you guys to spend like 5 minutes at least to read through it. Selection, okay. Read this part, okay, this part at least. Selection sort is just treat your array list into two. The left-hand side is sorted. The right-hand side is not sorted. Okay. So then the left-hand side, you just leave one item there. Then you go to the right-hand side for the rest of the array list. And if you find the smallest, that is the smallest, then the left one. Then you put it there, swap it. Okay, put it there. And then you exhaust the rest of it. And now you think, okay, the left one part, now left section is sorted. Right now the left section has only one item is sorted. Now goes to the second position. Okay, so you also use the second position one to compare with the rest of the array list. If you find the smallest in the rest, and you swap it to the second position, so now the left section has two items. They are sorted. So you just go it this way, and keep expanding the left section, and then exhaust the right section until there's no item in the right section. So that's the selection sort. So I want you guys to read this part. And if you have a question, I want you to raise your hand or speak up. You need to understand the concept of what is selection sort. What is a selection sort? Because the code tells you your selection sort to sort my array list. That is a diagram to show you. And this is the code. Any question on selection sort? Okay, if not, then keep reading this insertion sort. So this part. So insertion is just wanted to keep sorting the left-hand side. Then you go to pull an item to the right, just your right hand, okay? Just do that. And then you compare to all the items in the left-hand side, then put it in the right position. So that's the insertion. So it's set at this part saying, assume the first element is already sorted, select the second item inserted before if it's smaller, or keep it the right position if it's large. Of course, when we talk about sorting here is ascending. It could be descending, but you just reverse that, right? Reverse that logic. So then you have those two finished, then you go right hand side, put the next one, and then compare to that. So this is the example. This is a diagram to show you how to handle it. So what is an insertion sort? So you just compare. Selection, you see, you do the swap. If it's small, you do the swap. You can see the difference of these two. I really want you guys to, if you think this does not help you much, and you wanted to do the Google search and do more reading on it, because this is very important. Insertion sort, selection sort. Okay. So select is just going to the right, pull out the smallest into this position, and then go to the right, get the smallest, put into this position. So you see the code looks like this. You have two for loops here. And if you always use the smallest to hold that value, and then change it to this location. And the insertion, you see, you have two for loops. You see the difference of these two selection, these two sorting? Okay, that's good. Right. So if you guys understand that what is the selection sort, what is the insertion sort, and then when you get into a test and they ask you to sort it using insertion sort, then you need to remember that what does it mean. Okay. So let's move on then. So linear or sequential search uses the standard loop to traverse through the list to find the one. Binary search is performed on a sorted array list. So what does binary search mean? What we talked about before, you just go do a loop. Okay, you use it as a target and compare it one by one. So that's a linear or sequential search. What is a binary search? Binary search is performed on a sorted list. So you need to assume that the list is already sorted. Why we need to do it this way? Because you want to save time when you perform the search, right? You want to perform the search. So what does it mean? You cut your array list into half, left half and the right half. Okay. And then you compare your item to the middle one. If it matches, good, you find it. If it's not match, then you compare if it's bigger than the middle one or less than your middle one. If it's bigger, you trash the left half. You don't need it because you only care the items in the right hand side because you are bigger than the middle one. So that means you save half of the time. You do not have to traverse through the whole array list. Let's say you have like a 1 million custom names in it, and then now you are searching for a customer, and then you through like a 500,000 records away, so you save a lot of time. 500,000 records. You don't need to care it. So that's why you see why we needed to do sorting, because the binary search is benefiting from the sorting array list. After you sorted it, you could significantly reduce the searching time. Okay, so you understand that, everyone. So if you are asked to do a binary search, so you don't need to traverse over the entire array list. You just cut it into half. Of course, the assumption is that the array list is sorted. So usually, you want to sort the array list first. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So binary search is performed on a sorted array list. Split the list into two, compare the value to the middle one if it is large, using the right half to continue the search in the same manner, or using the left if they are the same, you find it. Do this until you find it. So you cut it in half, and then now you use the left half, then you cut the left half into half again. You do the search. So it's not, reducing your time in by like half, even more, because you always keep cutting the realistic, cutting it. You are not going through all the items in the array list. So that's why it is very efficient. Okay. All right, so let me see. I This is a quiz. So what is the list norms if it is initially 531 and the following code is executed? Okay, the array list norms. So what is the answer? I got one answer, 2, 3. I expect one more. Okay, the right answer is A. So can I get Colin to explain it? Do you mind? Colin, you have the right answer. Okay, so let me explain it. So this is your original one. So add 6 to it, then 6 in the end. And then you add 4 to the position 0. So that's 4. Now you remove index 1. So this one is removed because you push it, right? So you added a 4 to it. So it's a 4, 5, 3, 1, 6. And then now you remove 5. Okay. All right. Jinkang, you're right. So let me go to the next one then. What index value is used to locate the last element in the num array list? Okay, can you guys give me the answer? I get 1 and 2. Got a 3 answer. Okay, all right. The right answer is A because the size is a method. I already said in the very beginning when we talk about array list, if you want to get its size, you just use the size method. For array, you use length attribute. Okay, so the index value is always the size minus 1. Okay, that's good. All right, I think this is the last slide I have. So given the array list nums with the values 3760, what code below is the proper way to change the 7 to be a 5? The 2 answers. 3. All right. Yes, A is the right answer. You use a set. Then set, this is the position. Okay. You set and you set this position to 5 and the return value is 7. Okay. The original value is 7. So that's all I have for today. Any question? I really want you guys to go back to read a little bit more on selection sorting and insertion sorting and the binary search. They are very important concept. Go back to read more, and then we will have a merge sorting in unit 10 when we talk about that. If you can read that beforehand, that's good. If you have any question, let me know. So let me stop sharing.